Ancient Sanctuary was released on June 1st, 2004. This set introduced the Agent archetype, a series of fairy-type monsters who gain special abilities when their signature field spell, the Sanctuary in the Sky, is active on the field. Ancient Sanctuary also introduced the very first of the Monarch monsters, a series of tribute monsters with incredible effects that trigger when their tribute summoned to the field. Additionally, a new banlist went into effect prior to the release of Ancient Sanctuary on April 19th, 2004. Lackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, and Chaos Emperor Dragon, Envoy of the End were now both limited to 1 copy each, and Manticore of Darkness was now semi-limited to 2 copies per deck. In this series, both MBT and myself will be traversing the sands of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Each episode will take a deep dive into Yu-Gi-Oh's past formats and unlock new strategies as new sets become available. Strap yourselves in because anything is possible. Welcome to the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! We're going to be starting this episode off a little bit differently this time. As you can see, Joseph and I are actually both here on the wheel because we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. So, as you may know, this is the Ancient Sanctuary episode, and Ancient Sanctuary doesn't really add too many playable cards to the game. It doesn't really change too much up. So we wanted to do a sort of battle of the titans, if you will, of the 2 best decks of the format being Chaos, as well as Magical Scientist FTK. If there is a deck to gain anything from Ancient Sanctuary, it is this. So we have the former best deck versus the best deck, and we thought a fun way to start off the episode would be for Joseph and I to both be on the screen with you. We spin the wheel and see who is going to get what. Joseph, how are you feeling about this?
I'm feeling pretty good, both in my choice of attire and in my choice of deck. I would be happy piloting either of these. I think it's arguable that Magical Scientist FTK has entered its final form, but the difference between the way Magical Scientist FTK performs now and later is just negligible. The deck is so consistent after you get Reasoning and Monster Gate, but that doesn't mean we should count Chaos out. It does still have Sed, and Sed is a heck of a card.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the ways to beat Chaos Emperor Dragon is to just FTK the opponent before they get the chance to summon it, I suppose.
I guess so.
Yeah, if it works. So, okay, Joseph, so I am in control of the wheel. Now, here's how we're going to decide. What I'm going to do is I am going to start clicking to spin the wheel. So, do you want the wheel to whatever it lands on be the deck that you play or the deck that I play?
I'd like it to be the deck that you play.
Okay, so whatever it lands on is the deck that I am playing, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to start spinning the wheel now very aggressively.
More! More!
And you are going to tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay, this is, this is a bit fitting because I did win the Magical Scientist episode. You won the Chaos episode, so I guess we're kind of going back to our old decks that have actually done us some good.
All right, I'm gonna have to channel my inner Gage. I'm prepared, and I am super excited to blow you out with Ring of Destruction Sed turn 1.
God, it's gonna go. So much of this is just gonna rely on the die roll.
Oh gosh. All right, should we head into Dueling Book and meet up in a couple of minutes?
Yep, sounds like a plan, buddy.
Oh, fantastic to be playing Chaos Emperor Dragon again. We had a lot of success last week against Alex's copy of this card, but the monster knows its true master. Sed answers only to the person at the table not named Cimoooooooo. Shouts out to Gage. You can see we're playing a less unfair version of the deck we were playing last week. Certainly, we don't aim to make Chaos Emperor Dragon turn 1, though it would be nice. We actually probably have to play the game, and this list is approximating something more close to GOATs than more close to FTKs. Unfortunately, Alex is playing Magical Scientist, so a recruiter build of this deck may not be the wisest choice. That said, this is the most faithful adaptation of a bunch of different worlds lists that I could come up with, and I think it's pretty good in a vacuum. Games 2 and 3, however, there's a lot that's going to be coming out. I'll roll through the cards real quickly for you. First up is Chaos Emperor Dragon Envoy of the End, the most powerful card in the deck. If you're able to get this monster on your side of the field, not only do you have a 3,000 attack point beater, but also you can use its effect to send all cards in your opponent's hand and on both player sides of the field, and in your hand to the graveyard, then dome your opponent for 300 points for each. Next up is Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning. It banishes cards, it attacks twice, what's not to like, and Jinzo in what is his last hurrah as a staple of the format. He's in and out from this point forward, certainly a mainstay during GOATS, but doesn't stick around forever. Not the format-defining super threat that he once was. We've got Breaker the Magical Warrior. This card is fantastic. A 1900 beater that becomes a 1600 if you have to pop a spell or trap card, though I don't think we have very many targets against Alex's strategy. We've got 2DD Warrior Lady that attacks very nicely into Recruiters, which I believe Alex is still on. We've got Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, which is fantastic against some aspects of Magical Scientist. It gets cards out of the graveyard, which is less opportunities to Monster Reborn, which is something. We've got Double Magician of Faith, though I don't think games will last long enough for me to get any sort of value off of them. We've got 2 Mystic Tomato, a Sangan, 2 Shining Angel, a Sinister Serpent, a Spirit Reaper, a Witch of the Black Forest, and a Yatagarasu. This card is still Ced's partner in crime. If you can get Chaos Emperor Dragon onto the field to something like Witch of the Black Forest and then pop the Witch of the Black Forest, it is really easy to lock your opponent out of the game forever with Yata. For spells and traps, we are playing literally one of each card. We are playing literally 19 one-ofs. This is such a weird period of Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck building, but this is actually optimal. We're on 1 copy of Change of Heart, 1 Confiscation, 1 Dark Hole, a Delinquent Duo, a Graceful Charity, a Harpy's Feather Duster, a Heavy Storm, a Monster Reborn, a Mystical Space Typhoon, a Nobleman of Crossout, a Painful Choice, a Pot of Greed, a Premature Burial, a Raigeki, a Snatch Steal, and a Forceful Sentry. After that, we're on a Call of the Haunted and Imperial Order, a Mirror Force, a Ring of Destruction, and a Torrential Tribute. Now, this lineup will look a lot less general in games 2 and 3. Things like Change of Heart, for example, get a lot less good when Alex doesn't have anything worth Change of Hearting. In the side deck, we've got DD Crazy Beast. This was a common tech against Recruiter decks. We've got Tsukiyomi. I shouldn't have to tell you how strong this card is. We've got Tribe Infecting Virus. We've got Triple Book of Moon. We've got Mirage of Nightmare. We've got Double Mystical Space Typhoon, a Nobleman of Crossout, 3 Solemn Judgment, and 2 Torrential Tribute. And you can bet your bottom dollar those 6 are going to come in games 2 and 3. So, excited to play this match, and I hope I win the die roll.
You guys thought last episode was ridiculous? I don't know. I think this one will give it a run for its money. Talk about David and Goliath. This is Goliath versus Goliath. This is a clash of the titans, and I can't wait to see what happens. Now, this is a very significant episode and milestone in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because the next episode is the first official TCG ban list, and a lot of the cards you see here are actually going to be banned, and we're probably not going to see for quite some time, maybe never again, and I cannot wait to see how this episode is going to play out. So, we spun Magical Scientist on the wheel, and man, as you can see, we have made some pretty significant changes. So for people who are unfamiliar or who didn't see the original episode featuring Magical Scientist is now limited, but it's okay because it's still just as easy as ever to access him. By paying 1,000 life points, you can special summon a level 6 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck. It can't attack, but it is also returned to the extra deck during the end of your turn, which is irrelevant because if you have Catapult Turtle out on the field, you can just pay 7,000 life points to summon 7 2100 attack monsters to deal 1050 damage to your opponent each by tributing them to the Catapult Turtle, and then you stack off the Magical Scientist and the Catapult Turtle, and that's the end of the game. So essentially, as long as we can get both of these monsters on the field on turn 1, we automatically win the game. There are no hand traps during this time, so there is 0 way to interact with this. This deck is just insane. With that said, however, we have some new tools at our disposal to make this deck even more consistent. So let's go ahead and do the card by card. So we have the 3 Catapult Turtle. We still need this because we want to see it in pretty much every instance. We are running 3 Dark Magician of Chaos. This is another all-star out of Invasion of Chaos that you didn't get to see in the previous episode, but this is just Magician of Faith on special summon. Remember, this card is also pre-errata. It just had to be normal or special summon to grab any spell card out of your graveyard and add it to your hand. So if we hit this off of, like, let's say a copy of Reasoning, it's irrelevant because we can actually get the Reasoning back to our hand and go again. Or let's say like Joseph actually calls 5 or 1 and gets it correct, then we can get Monster Reborn out of our graveyard if we excavated it and sent it to the graveyard off of Reasoning to get one of these back. There's no reason not to play 3 of this. This card will get limited in the future, and so we have to take full advantage of this while we can. We're also playing 3 copies of Gillosaurus. This is a free special summon on our turn 1 that has 0 downside because Joseph won't have anything in the graveyard, and then we can sack this for Catapult Turtle. If we have Last Will, we can then activate it to get Magical Scientist, and it is just the end of the game. At the very least, this is just a monster we want on the field for tribute fodder, but there are other purposes that this card serves. The one Magical Scientist, it's at 1, but it's still fine because it's so easy to get to. 1 card destruction, if we open our hand and we don't like it, we can just throw it away and draw a new one. This is a turbo deck, so that's what we're looking to do. 3 copies of Giant Trunade. This is if we're going second. We can blow Joseph's back back row back to his hand before we start engaging in all the shenanigans, and that's why we want to be playing this. 1 Graceful Charity for draw power, 1 Heavy Storm for the same reason as True Nade, 3 copies of Last Will. Last Will actually gets significantly better in this deck because of Mystic Walk. Mystic Walk is a quick play spell that says tribute a monster, select either its attack and defense, and gain that many life points. So let's say we have a Gillosaurus, a Mystic Walk, and a Last Will. We can special Gillosaurus, Mystic Walk it away for the life points, then trigger Last Will. This was usually a card that was more difficult for us to trigger on our own turn 1, unless we like tribute summon Catapult Turtle, but Mystic Walk is a way to get around that. It also allows us to survive if we need to buy more time, but it's mainly just to trigger Last Will more than anything, and then we're just off to the races. 3 copies of Monster Gate. This is actually one of the few cards out of Ancient Sanctuary that is relevant during this time, and Monster Gate is very similar to Reasoning in what it does, except you have to tribute a monster specifically in order to activate it, and this is where Gillosaurus can come in handy. If we open Gillosaurus plus Monster Gate, special the Gillosaurus, tribute it off from Monster Gate. It also sets up for Last Will very nicely, because again, we're getting a monster from the field to the graveyard. So we'll get to special summon anything else, and then we also then get to Last Will for maybe the other combo piece if we get lucky and hit something good. It's just all value. Monster Reborn, 1 MST. We're already playing 3 True Nade and a Heavy Storm, so this is just for like singular removal, I guess. I don't really know what else you could play in place of this. 3 Mystic Walk for the aforementioned reasons. Painful choice because it probably just wins the game automatically, I'm sure. Pot of Greed, Premature Burial, 3 copies of Reasoning, and 3 copies of Reload. This is actually similar to Card Destruction, except instead of discarding the hand, it actually shuffles it back into the deck. So this is another way that we can have another shot of drawing a brand new hand, hopefully get what we want. We can also just set cards first before firing this off. So let's say we have like Monster Reborn and 4 cards that don't do anything. Set that, reload our hand, draw a new one, and hopefully that will allow us to do something. Card Destruction is a little bit better because again, with Monster Reborn, with Premature Burial, we want to get those cards in the graveyard so that these cards are live, but this is still a fine way. We're just looking for as many chances as possible to get to our combo. 3 Spell Reproduction. For people who've never seen this, send 2 spells from your hand to the graveyard, then target a spell in your graveyard and add that to your hand. This card is great for getting dead copies of like Mystic Walk out of our hand, but at the very least, if we need to get like a Monster Reborn or maybe get rid of copies of like Giant True Nade if we're going first, this will allow us to get another combo piece and keep going. We also have 1 Swords of Revealing Light just to stall a little bit in case we have to. There's a ton of removal in this format, so don't expect this to be around too much, and if Joseph summons Emperor, then it doesn't matter anyway. Moving on to the extra deck, it actually kind of matters for this deck because we need 7 monsters with 2100 attack that are level 6 or lower that scientists can summon, so we're playing Roaring Ocean Snake, Punished Eagle, and Empress Judge. You can pick any of these that you want. There's also others to pick from as well. 2 Dark Balter the Terrible. This is a card that we can get that can actually negate the effects of normal spell cards. Ryu Senji can negate normal trap cards. Fiend Skull Dragon, I believe, can negate flip effect monsters if it kills them in battle. So there's also some utility cards in this extra deck as well that scientists can fetch that allow you to play a little bit of a longer game if the game drags out. And we also have Thousand Eyes Restrict to steal our opponent's monsters. So there's a lot of cool things that this deck can do. And then for the side deck, I gotta be honest, I think the side deck is completely irrelevant for this because most of the time I think we're just gonna be playing the same 40 cards depending on what Joseph's playing. I've got 2 Book of Moon, Dark Hole, 2 MST, a Regeki, 3 Dust Tornado, 3 Torrential Tribute, and 3 Waboku. All of these cards are in here just to, I guess, stall for time if we have to, I suppose. Waboku's kind of like a lifeline, so I guess you could swap that in if you know you're going second, or maybe if you think that for whatever reason you might brick. I don't know. I don't know why you'd want to make this deck less consistent by adding cards from the side deck in here, because this is about as consistent as this deck can be at this point. So I think the side deck is a little bit pointless for this episode, but we'll see if anything comes up. If Joseph's playing some like weird stuff in his back row, that's where the Dust Tornadoes and the MSTs might be better than like True Nade or Storm. We'll have to see. Imperial Order can just hose our deck entirely, so that is kind of a problem. But other than that, the deck is pretty clean cut. If you want to see more of this deck, definitely check out the Magical Scientist episode. I believe that was Magician's Force, so you'll get to see more of this deck in action. But ladies and gentlemen, it is time to duel. Joseph, this feels like an episode out of Lithium's Cross Banlist Cup, except this was like an actual part of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. I don't know what the fuck is about to just transpire right now.
Yeah, this is not going to be a good one. I've said that for the past like 6 or 7 ones, mostly because any format that includes said is just on face, not very good. But this one I think is really not going to be good.
It's like we say that, and then even like the magical scientist episode itself actually turned out to have some level of interactivity. So we say this every time that we think this episode's going to be awful, and then it ends up actually being pretty cool. So judging by your sleeves, though, we'll have to find out. This is, Joseph, this is a very important die roll for you. If there is a time to win a die roll, it's probably this episode.
I've got about a 0% die roll win rate, so God's gonna have to pull through for me on this one.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We do have to shout out our patron over on Patreon. That is Basti. Basti, grant me your strength and allow me to win this rock, paper, scissors. Damn it!
Yes! Oh, Cimo, you fool. And you'll notice that I have upgraded my deck. Finally, after 10,000 years, I am playing a fusion deck.
Unbelievable. And it's crazy because some people don't know that back then there wasn't a 15 card limit on the fusion deck. So you could play like 50 monsters.
Okay, so as cool as it would have been to open like triple torrential ring of destruction, my turn one is actually set pass.
Oh, I am so sorry. That is
right.
so unfortunate.
Oh, wait, hold up. I got to draw for turn.
Oh, you do. Does that change anything?
No.
Okay, well, that's good. We don't have to reset anything then. I will draw. Where do we go from here? I figure we start this off nice and easy with a copy of Reasoning.
Shit. Okay, let's think. So you're on Magical Scientist, but there's only one, so I probably don't call one. You're on Turtle, of course. Big surprise there. 3 copies of that, that's a 5. You're on 3 copies of Mother Grizzly, maybe. That is a 4. You're on 3 copies of Helosaurus for 4. That's a 3, but I don't care if you get it out. Then you're on 1 copy of D-Mock, which is the new inclusion of this deck that is insane. It's out of this world strong.
I don't know why you're thinking so hard about this. You know it's just going to be the one magical scientist and you're just going to cry, so.
I am going to say 5.
You're going to go for 5.
I'm going to go for 5.
All right, final answer confirmed. There goes the swords.
Are you fucking kidding me, dude?
Joseph, when are you ever just gonna listen to me? When are you just gonna listen to how strong the powers of the anime protagonist truly are? You could have avoided this entire situation, but no. But no, you decided not to listen to me. That's okay. It's okay to get punished. I think
you're acting like I'm not going to be able to view this back and watch your hand in real time and see that you had the monster reborn anyway. It doesn't matter.
I am going to fire off now a copy of Reload, as it would turn out.
Okay. Let's see what that hand gets, how better this hand gets.
Yeah.
So Reload is not Magical Mallet. Magical Mallet is the only piece of this deck you're missing. You get to shuffle your entire hand back into your deck and then draw the same number of cards. So apparently the only thing worth keeping was the Reasoning.
That is true. This hand speaks a much different story, I feel, though. This hand is more playable, but to what end?
Is it good?
I think this might actually work. Oh, God. This is... Trust me, if you saw my hand, you know why I'd be thinking about this so hard. But I think this works. I'm probably going to regret doing this, but it might be the only way. So I think we're going to give it a shot. I'm going to activate Magical Scientist.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to get myself out a copy of Dark Balter the Terrible, I suppose. I'm going to get another 1,000 paid here. I'm going to get a Fiend Skull Dragon.
Sure.
I am going to tribute both fusion monsters for Dark Magician of Chaos.
Oh, God. This is a hand, huh?
It's a hand. It's something. It's something. I'm going to activate...
Yeah, D-Mock is fine.
I'm going to activate Dark Magician of Chaos. I'm going to get the Reasoning from my graveyard.
Okay.
All right. I feel like we just fire the Reasoning here. It seems to like be the most logical thing to do. So I think I'm going to. I'll fire the Reasoning.
Well, this seems pretty straightforward. I just have to make sure you don't get exactly Turtle, right? All right, I'll pick 5 again.
Okay, 5 it is. Let's see how you do. Another Dark Magician of Chaos!
Wait,
would you look at that?
How many this card isn't limited. Oh, shit!
It's not limited. Not at all. So I'm going to use that second D-Mock effect. And guess what we're going to... Ooh, actually, I've got some options now because I milled Painful Choice this time. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and grab that. I think that's much better.
I was going to say, are you even allowed to get Reasoning? I guess you are. It's in the Graveyard of Resolution.
I'm going to go ahead and fire off the Painful Choice.
Yeah, do what you got to do.
We're going to send Catapult Turtle, Catapult Turtle.
Yeah.
I think we're also going to send send a catapult turtle.
Yeah, okay, that seems all right.
We're going to send a last will.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to send a... I don't think it even matters at this point. I'm actually going to bin 2 reasonings instead of the last will. So your choice is catapult turtle or reasoning.
Why the hell would you get reasoning? You're getting reasoning to try and find the DMOC. If I get you the catapult turtle, what does that do? Is catapult turtle... I don't know, man. Yeah, I guess I'll give you... How the you've already performed your normal.
I have.
What, are you gonna fucking double summon on me? That card isn't even out yet.
It's not. This time we know that.
All right, yeah, have the catapult turtle.
Thank you. What a pal. This was all largely irrelevant because I have the premature burial. So
Yeah, okay, all right.
So we're going to go ahead and bring the boy out. Now, you're probably wondering how I'm supposed to perform the FTK at this point, considering I've spent so many life points to get here.
I think you're just going to do an OTK, right?
You would think that, but I don't even have to attack anything. That's the best part, because what I can do is I can first use the catapult turtle to tribute off one of these Dark Magician of Chaos, and we'll do 1,400 damage to you. So now, let's see how far this gets us here. So we're going to go ahead and pay 5,000 life points for our scientist, and we're going to fire that off 5 separate times. Is that fine?
Yep.
All right, so that puts you
and would you look at that?
See, this would be funny to win this way, and I probably should, so I'm not going to be bad. But yeah, Catapult Turtle, I could just tribute off the DMOC. I also had a copy of Mystic Walk that I could have fired off to tribute the DMOC to get the 2,800 life points back that I...
Oh my god, Jesus. Yeah, this one didn't go so hot.
No, not at all, not at all.
Did we make it to the 8-minute mark? Do we have the ad revenue? Oh my god, what a miserable game one. Any piece of interaction. And then you said afterwards, if I had simply not had the magical scientist, I would have walked with it.
Probably. I mean, you
Very
could have avoided the whole situation if you listened to me and actually called one off of reasoning. But no, you won't listen to Cimo. Why would you ever do that?
This is another crusty hand. I boarded into about 9 cards and found none of them.
Well, that's hopefully good for me. I'll draw. Let's start by firing off a giant Trunade to keep it nice and clean here.
Sure. Back to hand this goes.
We're only playing the fairest of Yu-Gi-Oh! Speaking of which, let's go ahead and fire off a reasoning.
All right. There's no fucking way. Okay, now that I know you're on 3 DMOC, that's what I'm the most scared of. So we'll go with 8 here.
Okay, I think that's pretty reasonable given the circumstances. So let's see if you're lucky. Oh, okay. Gillosaurus. Not too bad.
I mean, that's horrifying, but could be a lot worse.
It could be a lot worse. I am going to tribute it for a catapult turtle.
Oh, okay. Well, it is a lot worse.
It is. I'm going to activate Last Will.
Yep.
So long, Joseph. How's your Chaos Emperor Dragon looking now?
Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Ah, Yu-Gi-Oh!
Isn't it grand?
What an enjoyable game. What a fun, interesting game. I didn't get to play 1 card this set. What the fuck?
What are you talking about? You set some cards. What do you, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't even know if I'm on Chaos. I could be playing Subterror for all you know.
That's fair. Would you like to go again to see how quickly that this can maybe turn around if I don't get so lucky with the reasoning?
No, I'm good. I realistically don't think there's a bad reasoning hit for you. I'm sitting here like, I mean, that was the worst one. That was the worst possible one you could have summoned, and it still won you the game.
Yeah, I mean, when you open Catapult Turtle plus Last Will, I mean, you had to have called it correctly to avoid that situation. And to be fair, had you, my hand wasn't that great. Like, I would have had to probably set the Last Will. I would have reloaded and tried to actually get something else, because then at that point, my hand is just Turtle and like just other stuff that doesn't do anything. So had you actually been right, then we would have been in a completely different game. It's hard. Dark Magician of Chaos completely changes the equation for this deck because it's basically 3 Magician of Faith that allow you to just go again if you don't call it off of reasoning. So it's like, oh, you got a Democ. I'm just going to take reasoning and fire it again. And while you're also simultaneously getting 2,800 attack bodies on the field. So it actually gives you the ability to like beat down in some instances too, to make the threshold for scientists even easier to achieve a lot of the time.
I mean, not to mention, if you're activating reasoning and then you hit a Democ and it's summoned, you've probably milled like 3 or 4 spells in the process.
Right.
And given that every one of these spells wins you the game on the spot, that's not great.
Right, exactly. And then like, yeah, I mean, look what I just milled off of this one. There was a Graceful, there was a Spell Reproduction, there was a Monster Gate. I'm actually so impressed with how much more consistent this version of the deck is, because you have the stuff like reload to like go again if you don't get what you want. The Monster Gates and the Mystic Walks are actually crazy because they're a way to enable Last Will that the deck desperately needed. The only way to really fire off Last Will in the previous iteration of the deck was to actually hard tribute summon Catapult Turtle and then fire off Last Will. But in this deck, Mystic Walk gets rid of a monster. Monster Gate gets rid of a monster while also simultaneously giving you cards at the same time. So the fact that you have more ways to trigger the Last Will just makes the deck far more consistent than ever. And again, with reasoning, it's like there's no good hit. Like Gillosaurus is probably, like you said, the worst, or the, excuse me, your best case scenario, my worst case. And as long as I have the right tools to work around it, like a Catapult Turtle, like a Monster Gate, that's it. Like they're game over. There's nothing else you can do.
Yeah, this is pretty much the fever pitch of this deck. It's about as bad as it gets. And, you know, I'm glad that a stop was put to it eventually, but not before I had to suffer through this best of 3.
How was this allowed to be legal for this long? Like, I don't understand how this was possible.
Well, remember, we had 6 firewall formats in a row.
That's fair. That's true.
I will say, this one, you were talking about consistency, and there were ways in which the old one could come back from like an, oh my gosh, I accidentally, you know, ended up in a scenario where I don't have enough life points, or I had to pass a couple of turns and my opponent got in, or something got ringed and cut me off of it. It is just such a monumental difference what Democ and Reasoning make. This was 2 on the draw AoE spell and trap destructions into full combo turn 1. I mean, it's just immense. It's unbelievable.
What was in your hand, by the way, for everyone who's curious? Because obviously you did spin Chaos, and obviously they know what you're playing, but I'm just curious, like, what this hand actually looked like.
So I am on a recruiter-focused build, which is obviously stupid, knowing that you're on Magical Scientist, but pretty good in the dark. And then in games 2 and 3, you can board out of significant parts of it, but as you can see by the Shining Angel, not the entire part of it. Game 1, I drew 2 DD Warrior Ladies, a couple of other monsters, and then 1 spell trap that was kind of a do-nothing. I had the Regeki on the crackback if you didn't kill me that turn, but of course there's no world in which Scientist doesn't. This time I drew Mirror Force and nothing else. And that's that. You know, I have to draw Torrential Tribute or Solemn Judgment or Imperial Order, and you have to not find one of your, I think, 3 at this point giant Trunades, one of your Harpy's Feather Dusters, one of your Heavy Storms, one of your MSTs a lot of the time will do it as well.
Right, and to be fair, Imperial Order is probably the best of the bunch, because most of the time, if I don't have the MST, not only can you protect the Imperial Order, because obviously it would negate spell effects, but 90% of my deck is spell cards. So if you get to Imperial Order and resolve it, I just automatically lose the game, and there's probably no way I can win. So, I mean, there is counterplay, but it's like 1 card to a degree, and like you said, you still have to consider all the Trunades, the Heavy Storm, the Dust. Like, there's just so many cards that just hose the back row right now, and as long as you just get 1 of them, then you're free and clear. There was no Effect Veiler during this time. There was no hand trap interactivity at all. I mean, like Karibo, I guess, but that doesn't even count, because I think that's just battle damage.
Is Hanawata out yet?
No, I don't think Hanawata's out yet. It's just like,
oh jeez.
There was Waboku doesn't do it, because Waboku's only battle damage. There's just no card that I'm aware of that can stop something like this from happening, aside from having a trap that specifically will like negate a summon or destroy a monster on the field. There's nothing that you can just proactively fire that just blanket protects you for the turn, and that's that's just wild. And then again, that this was allowed to be legal for as long as it was. You know, chaos is king, and chaos is going to be king for probably the next 10 episodes of the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! But damn, Magical Scientist is fucking good.
Oh, it's extremely good. Oh man.
So this episode, I guess the prophecy had been foretold that we thought this episode was going to be an absolute nightmare. This was the first time I think that it actually happened, which is a bit unfortunate because I kind of wanted to see what sort of interplay there was going to be between Chaos and Magical Scientists, and it just didn't transpire, unfortunately.
I mean, there was interplay. You know, I said a card and you trunate it.
You called the wrong numbers off reasoning. I guess that was
exactly.
the interplay. I suppose. A big mistake. You just had to pick better, Joseph. Clearly, that was what was wrong. Yeah. But when we get to the next episode, it's insane, right? Because the first ever TCG ban list is in effect, ever. And it bans, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 cards. And it's some cards that we've seen for the last, almost just since the beginning of these episodes. I'm pretty sure we have Emperor getting banned. We have Witch and Sangan, I believe, getting banned. I think stuff like Harpy's Feather Duster and Raigeki, and just some of these cards that have just been game changers for us for the last we're almost on 20 episodes of this series now, and they're going to be gone. And yes, during time, they will shift around the list, so they're not going to be permanent. For the most part, some of them are permanent, but
yeah,
it is really going to shift how we are going to have to deck build in these future episodes. But at the same time, it also unlocks a lot of potential other decks that were really impossible to play because of just how game warping some of these cards were.
Yeah, to this point, almost everything has been dealt with by limits, you know? They said, it's not that big of a deal. We can leave cards like Pot of Greed at 1, and if you draw it, you draw it. That is not the case anymore. There's no way to resolve a format in which this is legal, in which Chaos Emperor Dragon is legal, in which an Imperial Order blows out every single deck under the sun. And as a result, we get actually 13 cards on this first list. Some of them come back, as you were saying, during GOAT format, but for cards like Harpy's Feather Duster, cards like Chaos Emperor Dragon Envoy of the End, cards like Yatagarasu, this is it for them. They never get off the list unless they are errataed, and you can see why in these games.
What's crazy is I'm actually like taking a look through this deck specifically. I think the only card that gets hit, do Graceful and Pot both get hit on the list?
So from this deck, Graceful Charity, Monster Reborn are the big hits.
Ooh, and that's a pretty big one too, because without Monster Reborn, you lose some of the ability to get back. You still have Premature Burial, which is fine, but I mean, that's only two cards if you think about it.
I guess you're probably on Harpy's Feather Duster too, but it kind of serves a tertiary role. Like, you're not super beat up about having to go in harder on MSTs.
Right, exactly. And you have Trunade and Heavy Storm anyway, so you still have options. I still think it's just surreal that this deck is still playable to a degree. Yes, the consistency gets hit because losing Graceful is probably massive, right? Because then you can't control what you're discarding. You lose the ability to pick Reborn targets. And then Reborn is secondary to that because if you don't have anything in the grave, then Reborn doesn't matter. But Reborn's also the key combo piece, right? It's able to get you back the Turtle, get you back the Magical Scientist. It's why Painful Choice is good, right? Because then you're able to pick the stuff you want to bring back like I did in the first game. So again,
I mean, I shouldn't have to tell you, like, Reborn into Demok into Reborn into Demok into Reborn into Demok is crazy.
Right, exactly. And that's probably part of the reason why Monster Reborn gets banned, in all honesty. So, but it's still playable. It's still playable, which is crazy. And maybe we will revisit it. Probably not, because people are probably so sick of this deck by this point. But yeah, I can't wait to see what other new decks we are going to start exploring, because I believe the next set, if my memory serves correctly, is Soul of the Duelist. And this is where things are going to start to get more interesting, right? I believe we get Mobius the Frost Monarch in there, which is a pretty strong tribute monster. We got some other stuff in there as well. It's going to get cool. We have a lot more just potential decks that, like I said, weren't able to be played before, and I can't wait to see. Now, if there was ever a time for the wheel to, A, come back, but B, be more populated than it's ever been before, this is the time it's going to be very populated. So guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! The first ever ban list is right around the corner, and get ready, because we've still got some fun decks to explore. We have to shout out our patrons as always, so big shouts to Pony Stark, Joshua Wiley, Sean, Tim00x3, Shadow1317, Michael Dente, Mystic Walk, we have Ole, we have Neo Cypher Slacker, Sylvia Wilds, Angayoko, Part 2, Dan the Man Hoban, Synchro Guy, GW, Jarvis Martin, Logan Thomas, Dragon Lord Dollywop, Peter Gregory, Rasmus, Shotagonist, Thomas Nelson, Emil Cohen, Ika Ironfag, Draconic, Alex Smith, Jordan Coons, Timothy Chen, Jesse Wood, True Nerdgasm, Brother Paul, we have Yu-Gi-Oh! Hot Pack, Naru Celeste, Chris Wood, Shane Reese, and Jordan Husey. Thank you all so much for watching the video, and we will see you next time.